Kang Ji-sung, called Louis, lives a carefree life in Europe. He is the heir to a huge fortune and is used to spending money on whatever he wants. His life is full of luxury and comfort, but Louis has one feeling that haunts him: loneliness. Due to the constant tutelage of his family and servants, he has little knowledge of the world outside of his wealth. His main hobby is endless shopping, in which he finds temporary solace. Meanwhile, in the small rural town of Ko Bok-shil lives with his brother. Bok-shil is a kind but poor girl who is forced to work in the fields to make ends meet. However, her life changes drastically when her brother suddenly goes missing after traveling to Seoul. In search of him, Bok-shil decides to leave the village and travel to the capital. At the same moment, Louis gets into a car accident that completely changes his life. After the accident, he loses his memory and finds himself on the streets of Seoul. Now, without his wealth and status, he finds himself in a world that is new to him. Not knowing who he is or where he came from, he becomes homeless with no money and no one to help him. Ko Bok-shil, having come to Seoul in search of her brother, meets Louis by chance. She mistakes him for someone as poor as she is and decides to help him. In their first moments together, it becomes obvious to Bok-shil that Louis doesn't know the basic things about the life of an ordinary person. He doesn't know how to save money, doesn't know how to survive in the city, and constantly gets into strange situations. He keeps spending Bok-shil's last money on unnecessary things because he can't cope with his old shopping habit. Gradually, Bok-shil begins to guess that Louis is clearly different from the rest of the homeless. His strange behavior and refined manners lead her to believe that he must have an unusual past. However, Louis himself remembers nothing of who he used to be. Together, they begin their journey through life, trying to find their place in a huge city. After Ko Bok-shil finds Louis on the streets of Seoul, their paths cross more and more. Bok-shil is still shocked by her encounter with Louis, who is clearly in need of help. She mistakes him for an ordinary homeless man lost in the city and decides to help him. Despite having very limited resources herself, Bok-shil shows compassion and care by providing Louis with temporary shelter. Louis, who has lost his memory, finds himself in a world that is completely unfamiliar to him. He has no memory of his past and behaves completely helpless. His habit of luxurious life and his inability to cope with elementary domestic issues lead to many comical situations. Even in the most mundane tasks, such as buying food or trying to pay the rent, he behaves as if he is still living in his old world of wealth and privilege. Bok-shil, seeing this, tries to help Louis adapt to real life. She teaches him how to save money, what he can buy and what he should save on. Her patience and persistence gradually begin to influence Louis, who, despite his naivety, still tries to get to the bottom of things. However, his past behavior still makes itself felt. One day, he spends Bok-shil's last money on unnecessary purchases, not understanding why she is so angry. For Bok-shil, life in Seoul is still difficult. She continues to search for her brother and faces the many challenges of living in a big city. Louis, despite his helplessness, becomes a kind of comfort to her. Their existence together gradually strengthens their bond, and Louis begins to feel sincere affection for Bok-shil, feeling secure and important around her. Meanwhile, Louis continues to attract attention with his unusual behavior. Bok-shil notices that he behaves differently from other homeless people. His mannerisms, his way of speaking, and even some of his habits reveal a man with a rich past. However, she has no idea who he used to be, and Louis remains a mystery to her, which she does not yet try to solve. From this point on, Louis begins to realize the importance of a simple life. Together with Bok-shil, he learns to enjoy the little things, although he still behaves wastefully and clumsily at times. Gradually, he realizes that money and luxury are not the key to happiness, and his relationship with Bok-shil becomes more and more important in his new life. Louis and Ko Bok-shil's life becomes more interesting and complicated as they continue to live together. Louis, though he has lost his memory, is beginning to feel more confident in a world that has so far seemed alien to him. He learns to cope with reality, though many things remain a mystery to him. His dependence on Bok-shil grows stronger, and he feels more and more sympathy for her, although he does not yet fully realize the nature of his feelings. For Bok-shil, life with Louis becomes a challenge. She continues to care for him, but sometimes her patience is wearing thin. Despite this, she still feels responsible for his fate and continues to teach him the basics of normal life. Her concern for Louis becomes more and more genuine, and she begins to see him as more than just a man in trouble. During this time, Louis continues to make mistakes due to his habit of luxury. One day, he spends money on unnecessary things again, which causes Bok-shil to resent him. However, at this point, she begins to wonder who he really is. His mannerisms, demeanor, and style of speech make her suspect that Louis is not just an ordinary man from the street. Perhaps his past is hiding something more than she realized. As Louis tries to adjust to his new way of life, he gradually begins to realize the value of simple things. Although it is still difficult for him to give up his old habits, he tries to become a better person for Bok-shil's sake. She, for her part, continues to search for her brother, but now her attention is more and more focused on Louis and his problems. Their life together becomes an important part of their new discoveries and growth. Meanwhile, Chae Jun-won appears on the horizon and begins to take an interest in Bok-shil. He admires her kindness and perseverance, seeing her not only as an attractive girl, but also as a strong person who tries to cope with difficulties. His affection for Bok-shil quickly develops into romantic feelings, though she doesn't notice it yet. Jun-won's presence adds a new element to the relationship between the characters and creates the beginnings of a love triangle. Meanwhile, Louis' family, unaware of his whereabouts, begins a search for him. They are convinced that he is alive, but do not know how or where to find him. The family begins to worry about the fate of the heir, because his absence may change their plans and the future of the company. Against this background, Louis continues to live his new life, not realizing that his past will soon catch up with him. Gradually, Bok-shil begins to notice that her affection for Louis is growing stronger. Although their life together is full of difficulties, she realizes that he has become an important person to her. However, she does not realize who he used to be and what lies behind his forgotten past. Louis, for his part, begins to realize that his life with Bok-shil may be more than just a temporary refuge. Ko Bok-shil and Louis' life, while seemingly stable at first glance, is still full of unexpected twists and turns. Louis is slowly getting used to his new surroundings, but his past is still a mystery to both him and Bok-shil. Despite the domestic difficulties and the unfamiliarity of his identity, Louis adapts more and more each day to life in humble circumstances. His inner growth is evident as he gradually learns to save money, take care of himself, and not rely on money he no longer has. Ko Bok-shil, despite her financial problems and her constant search for her brother, does not leave Louis without support. Louis becomes more and more important to her. She sees him not just as a homeless man in need of help, but as a true friend. Although her life remains difficult, especially given the hardships of living in a big city, Bok-shil continues to be a support for Louis. The mutual trust between them grows, and it begins to affect their feelings for each other. Meanwhile, Chae Jun-won becomes an important figure in Bok-shil's life. Working for a large company, he offers her a job because he sees her as a motivated and hardworking girl. Bok-shil accepts, of course, as it's an opportunity to earn the money she needs to live and find her brother. Working with Jun-won gives her some stability, but her new boss begins to take an increasing interest in her. Jun-won, who is used to seeing businesswomen around him, is drawn to her kindness and spontaneity. Louis becomes jealous of Bok-shil and Jun-won, although he doesn't fully understand his feelings. He sees Jun-won wooing her, and he becomes concerned that Bok-shil may be drifting away from him. For the first time in his life, Louis finds himself losing something important not because of money, but because of his own feelings. He finds it difficult to cope with this jealousy, and he begins to wonder what his place is in Bok-shil's life and what he has to offer her besides his affection. Meanwhile, suspicions are growing in Louis' family that he is alive. His family begins an active search for him, as the heir to a major corporation cannot simply disappear. This search comes closer and closer to revealing his whereabouts, though Louis himself has no idea. He is immersed in his new life with Bok-shil and doesn't realize that the past could return at any minute. As Louis and Bok-shil continue to build their lives in Seoul, something more than friendship begins to form between them. Louis, despite his amnesia, begins to realize that Bok-shil is more than just the person who saved him. Her kindness and the sincerity with which she treats him awakens feelings in Louis that he has never experienced before. He begins to care for Bok-shil not only because she helps him, but because she becomes a true friend and perhaps something more to him. Ko Bok-shil also feels that her affection for Louis is growing stronger and stronger. She sees his vulnerability and realizes that he needs her support more than anyone else. However, she doesn't know who he was in the past, nor does she realize that Louis is hiding a secret that could change everything. Despite this, Bok-shil continues to care for him without expecting anything in return. As time passes, Louis becomes more and more cautious, trying not to cause more problems for Bok-shil. He feels guilty for previously spending her money on unnecessary things and now wants to become more responsible. However, his desire to change collides with his inner contradictions, because he still doesn't remember who he is or how he got into this situation. Every little thing causes him to question his past. But despite this, Louis is reluctant to share his experiences with Bok-shil for fear of scaring her or hurting her. Meanwhile, the relationship between Bok-shil and Jun-won grows closer and closer. Jun-won offers her more opportunities at work, tries to help her adjust to life in Seoul, and openly expresses his affection for her. However, Bok-shil does not see him as a potential partner and is more focused on helping Louis. Although her affection for Jun-won becomes obvious, Louis begins to notice that Bok-shil is drawn to Jun-won, and this causes him internal conflict. He realizes that he cannot offer Bok-shil what Jun-won can give her: stability, security, a job. However, Louis feels that his feelings for her are strong, and he begins to question whether he should confess his feelings or give her the opportunity to be happy with someone else. Louis becomes increasingly aware of her dependence on Bok-shil, but also begins to feel jealous of Jun-won, who offers her a more stable future. Bok-shil, for her part, is in a difficult situation between the two men, not fully realizing her feelings. Her main goal is to find her brother, but her affection for Louis and her gratitude to Jun-won begin to confuse her. Louis and Ko Bok-shil continue their life together, and their bond grows stronger despite their growing difficulties. Louis begins to realize that his life has changed not only because of his memory loss, but also because of Bok-shil's influence. He increasingly learns to adapt to ordinary life, although his former habits of luxury are still evident. Louis avoids unnecessary spending and behaves more responsibly, trying not to burden Bok-shil. Bok-shil continues to search for her brother, but her work at Cha Jun-won's company is taking up more and more of her time. Jun-won becomes more and more attached to Bok-shil and offers to take part in various projects, seeing her not only as a talented employee, but also as a girl for whom he has a crush. His interest becomes more noticeable, but Bok-shil does not realize his intentions yet, and continues to consider him just a good moss. Louis becomes jealous of Bok-shil and Jun-won. He sees the attention he gives her and feels that he might lose her. However, Louis isn't sure how he should express his feelings, especially since he still doesn't remember his past. He is afraid that if he tells Bok-shil how he feels, it will complicate their relationship, especially if his memory comes back and he learns something that changes their lives. Meanwhile, Louis' family continues their search for him. More and more details about his whereabouts come to light, and his loved ones prepare to bring him home. However, none of them suspect that Louis is living with Bok-shil and leading a simple life, completely different from the one he led before. His past begins to surface little by little, and it threatens the peace of mind that he and Bok-shil have built. Louis, not realizing that his family is on the verge of revealing his whereabouts, grows deeper and deeper into his feelings for Bok-shil. He begins to question whether he can leave her if his past comes back to haunt him. These feelings lead to an internal conflict that he can't resolve. On the one hand, he wants to be honest with her, but on the other hand, he fears that the truth about his life will ruin their relationship. Gradually, Bok-shil begins to notice that Louis is becoming more and more withdrawn. His former playfulness and frivolity disappear, giving way to seriousness and even anxiety. She tries to understand what is happening to him, but Louis cannot tell her about his fears. He's afraid that when the truth about his life comes out, she won't be able to accept him as he was before he lost his memory. Meanwhile, Cha Jun-won shows his affection for Bok-shil by inviting her to dinners and giving her increasingly important tasks at work. He tries to take care of her, and although Bok-shil still doesn't notice his romantic intentions, her affection for Jun-won begins to grow. This new element in her life creates additional difficulties in her relationship with Louis, who feels that his place with Bok-shil is threatened. Louis is increasingly realizing that he needs to find a way to resolve his internal conflicts and deal with his feelings for Bok-shil. He realizes that his jealousy of Jun-won is not only caused by his fear of losing Bok-shil, but also by the realization that he himself cannot give her what Jun-won has to offer: a stable job, a secure future, and a normal life. Louis is afraid that his past, which will soon become known, will push her away, and he will be of no use to anyone. As time goes by, the relationship between Louis and Bok-shil grows more and more heated. Their mutual feelings become apparent, but neither of them is ready to make the first move. Bok-shil, though attached to Louis, feels pressured by Jun-won to offer her a secure and predictable future. Louis, realizing that his time may be limited, tries to find a way to express his feelings but is faced with inner fears and insecurities. Louis and Ko Bok-shil continue to face new challenges in their lives. Louis, despite his efforts to adapt to the new reality, is still under pressure due to not remembering his past. His emotional fluctuations and growing jealousy of Cha Jun-won begin to increasingly affect their relationship with Bok-shil. He feels that he is gradually drifting away from her, especially when he sees Jung-won giving her support and attention. Bok-shil, as usual, is focused on finding her brother and her new job, where Jung-won plays an important role, but Louis feels like he's in the background. Meanwhile, Louis' family intensifies their search, determined to find the heir at all costs, whose disappearance has become a major headache for their business. Louis, unaware that he is being sought, begins to realize that his time around Bok-shil may be limited. He feels anxious, realizing that his past is about to be revealed and could change their lives forever. Jung-won, who continues to care for Bok-shil, feels his affection for her growing every day. He doesn't hide his feelings and increasingly looks for ways to spend more time with her. At work, he tries to provide her with good conditions, helps her develop her professional skills, and increasingly shows her his support. Bok-shil, however, does not notice or refuses to notice Jung-won's romantic intentions, as her thoughts remain preoccupied with Louis, for whom she feels increasingly attached. Louis becomes increasingly withdrawn, seeing Jung-won's attention to Bok-shil and realizing that he cannot offer her the same stability and security. He finds it difficult to express his feelings, and the fear of losing Bok-shil makes him even more hesitant. He begins to wonder whether to confess his feelings to her and risk destroying their bond, or to let her choose a safer and more stable path with Jung-won. Meanwhile, the situation escalates when Louis' family finally receives key information about his whereabouts. They're getting closer and closer to solving his disappearance and are determined to bring him home, even if he doesn't like it himself. Louis is unaware that his past is on the doorstep of his present life, and his encounter with the past could forever change his future with Bok-shil. Bok-shil increasingly begins to suspect that Louis may be someone much more important than she thought. His strange mannerisms, love of expensive things, and unexpected behavior have repeatedly raised questions for her, but she's never asked them directly. Now she begins to notice more and more oddities in his behavior, and begins to realize that his past may be connected to something significant. However, she is not ready to reveal the truth until the end, not knowing how it might affect their relationship. Meanwhile, Louis faces his own internal conflicts. He realizes that he loves Bok-shil, but his fear that he might be someone who doesn't meet her expectations keeps him from moving on. He sees Jong-won getting closer and closer to her, and his anxiety grows. The internal tension caused by his lost memory and the coming unraveling of his past threatens to destroy everything he and Bok-shil have built together. One evening, after a long day at work, Bok-shil comes home and finds Louis deep in thought. He finally decides to talk about his feelings, realizing that he can't keep silent any longer. Louis confesses his love to Bok-shil but adds that he is not sure if he can offer her the life she deserves. He talks about his fears and how his past could ruin everything they have now. Bok-shil, shocked by his confession, realizes that her feelings for Louis are also deep, but she has a difficult decision to make. She doesn't know if she's ready to accept him, not knowing what exactly lies behind his lost memory and past. Louis asks her to think about it and give him time to deal with himself and his future. After Louis confesses his feelings to Ko Bok-shil is faced with a difficult choice. His frank words make her question how she feels about him and what she expects for the future. She realizes that she has grown attached to Louis, but still worries that his lost past may be an obstacle to their relationship. Her confusion is compounded by the fact that Louis himself is unsure if he can offer her a stable future. Louis feels that his confession has left Bok-shil at a loss. Her reaction and silence let him know that she is not ready to accept his feelings right away. Even so, Louis is relieved that he is no longer hiding his emotions. Now his main task is to deal with his own past and figure out who he was, and what of that past he's ready to leave behind. Meanwhile, Cha Jong-won begins to notice that something has changed between Louis and Bok-shil. He spends more and more time with Bok-shil, seeing her as a girl he has romantic feelings for, and continues to support her both professionally and personally. Jung-won invites her to more and more events and shows his concern for her. He begins to openly express his intentions and does everything he can to make Bok-shil take notice of his affection. Louis, sensing the increasing competition from Jung-won, becomes more active. He wants to be close to Bok-shil and show that her choice is important to him. Despite his inner fears, Louis decides he can no longer back down. He is now ready to fight for his feelings for her, even though his past is still unresolved. Meanwhile, Louis' family is one step away from finding him. They are gathering all the clues, and the truth about Louis' whereabouts will soon be revealed. This makes his family prepare for the heir's return and his possible encounter with the world he left behind. The family is concerned that Louis may not remember everything at once, and that his return may have unexpected consequences. Bok-shil continues to observe Louis' behavior and begins to increasingly suspect that his past is hiding something significant. She remembers small details of his behavior that do not fit the image of an ordinary homeless man. Gradually, her intuition tells her that Louis could have been someone very important in the past, but she hesitates to question him directly. Her feelings for him are mixed. On the one hand, she is attached to Louis, and on the other hand, she is disturbed by his mystery. Cha Jung-won, seeing Louis taking steps to get closer to Bok-shil, intensifies his efforts. He wants to show her that he can offer her a secure future, and does his best to make her see him not only as a boss, but also as someone who can be her partner. Jung-won believes that his stability and caring can give Bok-shil the life she deserves. Louis faces the fact that his rivalry with Jung-won is heating up. He realizes that time is working against him. The past is about to be revealed, and he could lose Bok-shil if he doesn't take decisive steps. Louis is ready to do anything to save his relationship with her, and finally decides to tell her about his suspicions about his past. One of the people connected to Louis' past accidentally bumps into him on the street. This becomes the beginning of a chain of events that will inevitably lead to the uncovering of the truth. Louis begins to feel that his world is about to change, and an encounter with the past is now inevitable. After confronting a man who knows him from the past, Louis realizes he can no longer avoid the truth. Fragments of memories begin to surface in his mind that take him back to his former life. These fragmentary images remind him of who he was, but the full picture is not yet emerging. However, the mere fact that someone recognizes him on the street is unsettling to Louis. He feels that his past is catching up with him, and it threatens to destroy the entire life he has built with Ko Bok-shil. Bok-shil, noticing how Louis has become even more withdrawn and troubled since this meeting, continues to ask questions about his past. Her suspicions grow stronger. She becomes more and more convinced that Louis is more than just a homeless man who has lost his memory. His behavior, his mannerisms, his attachment to expensive things, all indicate that his former life was quite different. But Bok-shil doesn't know how to approach him because Louis himself doesn't fully understand his story. Cha Jung-won continues to actively court Bok-shil, offering her support and a steady presence in her life. He sees her struggling with guilt over not being able to find her brother, and tries to help her in any way he can to find him. Jung-won begins to speak directly to Bok-shil about his feelings, hinting that she deserves the stability and security he can offer her. However, Bok-shil is still unable to shake off her growing attachment to Louis, who remains central to her heart despite Jung-won's attempts to get closer to her. Louis, while finds himself in a difficult situation. He feels that his past will inevitably be revealed, and it could ruin his relationship with Bok-shil forever. He fears that when she finds out who he was, she won't be able to accept him as he is now. These thoughts make him even more indecisive, but Louis realizes that he can no longer hide the truth. He needs to decide if he is ready to reveal his past, or if he will try to walk away from it to keep his present with Bok-shil. Soon, Louis' family is on his trail. Conducting their own investigation, they finally find key clues that lead them to Louis' whereabouts. However, Louis, unaware that his search has reached a climax, encounters another acquaintance from the past. This finally confirms his hunch that his life is about to change. He realizes that he won't be able to hide forever, and that his former world is too close to ignore. Bok-shil senses that something is brewing, and her suspicions about Louis become clearer and clearer. She grows more and more attached to him and senses that something important is hidden in his past, but she hesitates to ask him direct questions. Her feelings for Louis are becoming more and more explicit, but her fear of being exposed prevents her from openly admitting her emotions. She fears that if Louis' past proves too complicated, it will change their relationship forever. Louis decides it is time to tell Bok-shil the truth. He realizes that their bond is based on trust, and he can no longer keep her in the dark. He makes an appointment with her to explain who he was before his memory loss. Louis hopes that even after learning the truth, Bok-shil will still stay with him. Louis, realizing that his past has caught up with him, and that he can no longer put off revealing the truth, finds the strength to talk to Ko Bok-shil. He realizes that their relationship can't move forward without honesty and decides to reveal his story to her, even though it could jeopardize everything they've built together. Meeting a man from his past and the information that his family is close to finding him adds additional pressure on Louis. Bok-shil, despite her anxiety, prepares for this conversation. She has long suspected that Louis is hiding something important, and now she is about to learn the truth. Her inner feelings are mixed. On the one hand, she is attached to Louis, but on the other hand, she fears that the truth will ruin their life. However, her desire to support him remains unchanged. During the meeting, Louis confesses to Bok-shil that he is not an ordinary man from the street, but the heir to a large corporation who has lost his memory. He tells her about his former life of luxury and wealth, but also how lonely he was before he lost his memory and met her. He admits that he's afraid to go back to his old life because he's afraid of losing the connection they made. Bok-shil is shocked by this confession. She had always guessed that Louis was different from others, but had not imagined that he was a wealthy heir. The new information turns her perception of Louis upside down and makes her wonder if their life can continue as before. Her feelings remain strong, but now she is faced with a choice: be with Louis despite his past, or step aside to allow him to return to his old life. As they talk, Louis' family learns where he is, and soon their representatives arrive to take him home. Louis is faced with a dilemma: return to his old life or continue to build a future with Bok-shil. His feelings for her become even more obvious, and he decides that he wants to stay with her despite family pressure. However, a return to his past life is inevitable. The family insists that Louis return and take responsibility as heir, especially in the face of a crisis in the company. Louis realizes that his responsibilities as heir cannot be avoided, but now he has to make a decision on how to move on with his life. He begins to realize that he may lose Bok-shil if he returns to his old life, but he cannot completely abandon his family and their expectations. Bok-shil, seeing that Louis is faced with a difficult choice, decides to back out. She wants him to make his own choices based on what he really needs. She realizes that she could lose him forever, but she doesn't want to stop him from returning to his family. Louis decides to open up to Ko Bok-shil, realizing that he can no longer hide his past. His revelation shocks her, but she stays by his side, realizing that Louis is in a difficult situation and has a difficult decision to make. He tells her about his life before amnesia, a life filled with luxury and the pressure of family obligations. Now his family is pressing for his return, and he is faced with a choice between his responsibilities as heir and his feelings for Bok-shil. Bok-shil is shocked by this confession. She sees Louis agonizing over having to choose between going back to his family and staying with her. His confession changes everything she knew about him, but her feelings for him remain unchanged. She realizes that Louis must decide for himself what he will do. Bok-shil supports him, even though she is not sure she can be a part of his world. Deep down, she realizes that their lives may be too different for them to stay together. Meanwhile, Louis' family is pushing hard to bring him back into the world of business and responsibility. They are convinced that he should take his rightful place at the helm of the company, especially during a difficult time for their business. Louis feels pressure from both sides. On the one hand, he doesn't want to lose Bok-shil, and on the other hand, he can't ignore his responsibility to his family. Cha Juong-won continues to be attentive to Bok-shil, realizing that her relationship with Louis is in crisis. He tries to support her and offers the stability she's been looking for so long. Jung-won truly believes he can give her the future she seeks and tries to show her that his feelings are serious. Bok-shil feels his support, but her heart is still with Louis despite the uncertainty of their relationship. Louis, meanwhile, is beginning to recover his memory, scrappy memories of his life before the amnesia return, and he realizes that his duty to his family cannot be ignored. At the same time, he experiences the fear of losing Bok-shil, who has become not just an important person to him, but a pillar in his new life. He realizes that the choices he has to make will determine their future. In a conversation with Bok-shil, Louis explains that his memory is slowly returning, and this only makes his situation more difficult. He admits that he can't completely abandon his family and responsibilities, yet his feelings for her remain unchanged. Louis realizes that he may have to return to his old life, but he doesn't want to lose touch with Bok-shil. He asks her to be patient while he tries to deal with the situation. Bok-shil listens to him with a heavy heart. She finds it hard to accept that Louis might be out of her life, but she also realizes that she can't stop him from doing his duty. She makes the decision not to pressure him and supports him in this difficult choice, even though the decision hurts her. Louis' family increases their pressure more and more, demanding his return. Louis realizes that he cannot escape his responsibilities. At the same time, his love for Bok-shil is still important to him, and he hopes that despite returning to his former life, they will be able to maintain their bond. After Louis makes the decision to return to his family, tension builds between him and Ko Bok-shil. His return to the world of business and responsibility means that their former life together can no longer remain the same. Louis' family welcomes him as an heir and expects him to take his place at the helm of the company immediately, especially as the business faces a crisis. Despite this, Louis is constantly thinking about Bok-shil, realizing that their relationship may now be in jeopardy. Bok-shil, struggling to cope with reality, continues to support Louis, although her heart is heavy with fear of loss. She feels that his old life is starting to pull him back in more and more, and this puts their relationship in doubt. She still believes in his sincerity, but realizes that his role as heir requires sacrifices he may be forced to make. His return to this world only reinforces her inner doubts whether she can be a part of his life in the future. Cha Jung-won doesn't miss the opportunity to get closer to Bok-shil. He sees her suffering from the uncertainty with Louis and tries to support her. Jung-won does his best to show that he can offer her the stability she so desperately needs right now. He continues to care for her and helps her search for her brother, trying to distract her from thoughts of Louis. Despite his efforts, Bok-shil cannot rid herself of the feelings for Louis that are deeply rooted in her heart. Louis, in his new old role as heir, is finding it increasingly difficult. He is having a hard time adjusting to the pressures put on him by his family and business. Every day he feels himself drifting away from Bok-shil, and it is tearing him apart. Despite his family's best efforts to get him back on track, he realizes that his feelings for Bok-shil have not diminished, but have only grown stronger. During this period, Bok-shil realizes that she, too, needs time to reflect. She feels lost, torn between believing in their love and realizing that Louis may not be able to return to the simple life they used to lead. Bok-shil decides to focus on her own goals of continuing her search for her brother and sorting out her feelings for Louis. Meanwhile, Louis continues to contemplate how to deal with the responsibilities that his position imposes on him. His family expects him to go back to his old life and forget everything that happened during his amnesia, but Louis realizes that he can no longer be the person he used to be. His life with Bok-shil has changed him, and now he doesn't want to fully return to the old lifestyle he is so tired of. Louis decides to talk to Bok-shil to explain that his return to his family does not mean the end of their relationship. He takes a moment to confront her and tell her how he feels. He says that their bond is still important to him, and that despite his responsibilities to his family, he's not ready to give up on their relationship. Bok-shil, listening to his words, realizes that he is sincere but doubts whether she can fit into his new life. After a sincere conversation with Louis, Ko Bok-shil senses the growing tension in their relationship. Despite his assurances that their bond remains important to him, she still doubts whether they can overcome the barrier that has grown between them. Louis is forced to become part of the world of business and responsibility again, and his daily life is now filled with meetings, decisions, and pressure from his family to live up to his heir status. Bok-shil, on the other hand, stays on the sidelines, watching Louis slowly drift into a life that she cannot share. Louis tries to balance his responsibilities with his feelings for Bok-shil. Despite this, his family continues to increase the pressure, demanding that he focus on the company's affairs. They are convinced that Louis should be the one to take charge in difficult times when the business is facing serious problems. Louis, although willing to fulfill his responsibilities, feels increasingly lost in a world to which he no longer fully belongs. Bok-shil realizes that it is increasingly difficult to find common ground with Louis. Despite his words, she feels that their lives are diverging. The waiting becomes more and more unbearable for her. She wonders if their love can survive in a world where Louis' world is full of wealth, power, and responsibility, while she is used to a simpler and more humble life. Cha Jung-won continues to stay close to Bok-shil. He sees her suffering and tries to support her every step of the way. Jung-won offers her a more active role at work, letting her know that she can expect stability and success in her professional development. He sincerely hopes that in time, Bok-shil will see him as a reliable partner who can offer her the stability she seeks. Bok-shil, although grateful for Jung-won's care, cannot shake her feelings for Louis. She sees Jung-won trying to support her and appreciates his efforts, but her heart still belongs to Louis. Her inner conflict intensifies, and she's increasingly lost in her thoughts about how they should proceed. She wants to give Louis a chance to handle his responsibilities, but realizes that this could mean the end of their relationship. Meanwhile, Louis becomes more and more immersed in the affairs of the company. He feels that he is losing control of his life, and this increases his inner conflict. He does not want to betray Bok-shil, but at the same time he realizes that his duties to his family cannot be ignored. His struggle between duty and love becomes more and more apparent, and he realizes that at some point he will have to make a choice that will change their fates. During one of their business meetings, Louis begins to realize that his heart no longer belongs to this world. He misses the life he and Bok-shil had together and feels that, despite the pressure from his family, his true happiness lies outside of the corporation and wealth. He decides to meet with Bok-shil to discuss his future and confess to her his doubts about whether he can continue to live in the business world. When they meet, Louis explains that his state of mind is torn between his responsibilities to his family and his feelings for her. He admits that life in the company no longer brings him joy, and that he longs to return to the simple but sincere life they began to build together. However, he can't give up his responsibilities completely without hurting his family. Bok-shil, after listening to him, realizes that they face a difficult choice. Either they must find a way to reconcile their worlds or separate completely. After a difficult conversation with Louis, Ko Bok-shil realizes that their relationship is hanging by a thread. Despite the love they feel for each other, the reality is becoming increasingly clear. Louis is bound by family obligations, and their lives may never cross again in the same way. Bok-shil decides to take a break and give Louis time to sort himself out, realizing that this choice is a crucial moment in their destinies. After meeting with Bok-shil, Louis begins to feel that his world has split into two incompatible paths. On the one hand, he realizes his responsibility to his family and business, but on the other hand, his heart longs for the simple life he shared with Bok-shil. An internal struggle grows within him. His family continues to press him, reminding him of his duty and the need to take his place at the head of the company. But Louis becomes increasingly convinced that even if he fulfills his obligations, he cannot be truly happy. Cha Jong-won, seeing that Bok-shil is still unable to make a decision about her future with Louis, continues to support her. He remains her trusted friend, ready to help her at any time. Jung-won truly believes that his stability and care can give Bok-shil the life she deserves. But Bok-shil can't reciprocate his feelings because her heart still belongs to Louis, despite all the difficulties they face. Meanwhile, Louis begins to become more and more immersed in thoughts about his future. He realizes that while his family expects him to continue the dynasty, his own desires and dreams are at odds with their expectations. He begins to doubt that he can be truly happy in the life that his family believes is the only right one for him. At one point, Louis makes the decision that he can no longer live for other people's expectations. He realizes that his happiness is not tied to wealth or business success, but to his love for Bok-shil and the freedom he has found around her. Louis decides that he must give up his role as heir if he wants to keep what is truly important to him, their relationship and genuine feelings. Louis meets with Bok-shil and confesses his final decision to her. He says that he can no longer live by the rules his family dictates and that he is ready to start over with her, even if it means losing everything he has financially. His love for her proves to be stronger than his fear of losing his wealth and status. Louis suggests that Bok-shil leave with him, to start a new life away from the pressures of family and business. Bok-shil, hearing this confession, cannot hold back her tears. She feels that despite all their difficulties, Louis is truly willing to sacrifice everything for their relationship. However, she realizes that his decision will have huge consequences not only for him but also for his entire family. Her heart is torn between happiness that Louis has chosen her and fear that his abandonment of his family responsibilities may bring him further suffering. Louis decides to put a stop to his old world. He announces to his family that he will no longer be involved in company affairs and leaves to start a new life with Bok-shil. His decision causes a wave of resentment and disappointment among his relatives, but Louis remains undeterred. He is ready to take the consequences just to keep his love and live the life he has chosen for himself. After Louis announces to his family his decision to leave the business and start a new life with Ko Bok-shil, tensions rise. His family is adamantly opposed to the move, believing that Louis cannot simply give up his responsibilities as the heir to a large corporation. But Louis remains adamant, realizing that their love with Bok-shil is more important to him than material wealth and business. He wants to start a new life where they can be happy, away from the pressures and expectations of family. Bok-shil feels both relief and excitement. She is happy that Louis has chosen her, but realizes that his decision to give up his family and business will bring him many hardships. Her anxiety grows, for Louis' world was not just a place where he held the position of heir, but a whole system of obligations and ties to his family. Bok-shil realizes that even if they walk away from it all, the consequences may catch up with them. Meanwhile, Louis' family, not resigned to his decision, begins to look for ways to bring him back. They fear that without his involvement, the company could run into serious problems and the business would suffer heavy losses. Louis' older relatives try to convince him to return, hoping that he will realize the seriousness of the situation and reconsider his decision. But Louis remains firm in his intention to leave. Cha Juong-won continues to watch from the sidelines. He realizes that he has little chance of winning Bok-shil's heart now that her choice is obvious. However, Jung-won remains her friend and is ready to help her if she asks for it. He sees that Louis and Bok-shil's life is not going to be easy, and worries about how they will cope with the new challenges that await them. Bok-shil and Louis decide to leave the business world and leave everything behind. Together they embark on a journey to find a place where they can start anew. For them, this step symbolizes a new stage of life, without obligations and pressure, but with the opportunity to be happy with each other. Despite all the difficulties, they believe that their love and affection will help them overcome any obstacles. However, new challenges arise in their path. As they walk away from their family and business, they are faced with the realities of having no stable income and difficulty finding a new place to live. Bok-shil, who is used to simplicity, easily adapts to the new environment, while Louis, who grew up in a world of luxury, has some difficulties. Nevertheless, he is willing to accept the challenges and go through it together with Bok-shil. Gradually, their new life begins to take shape. They find a small place to live where they begin to rebuild their future. Despite the difficulties, Louis feels that he has made the right decision, and his confidence in their future together grows stronger every day. He sees how happy Bok-shil is around him, and it gives him the strength to keep moving forward. After Louis and Ko Bok-shil started a new life away from business and wealth, their world slowly began to take on new colors. Louis, who was used to luxury, faced challenges he was not prepared for before. Life without privilege was much more difficult than he had imagined. Everyday domestic issues such as finding a job, having to take care of the little things, and financial instability were new challenges for Louis. However, he had Bok-shil by his side, who taught him to look at these difficulties differently. Bok-shil, who grew up in a more humble environment, adapted easily to the new life. She supported Louis by showing him that happiness can be found in simple pleasures, eating breakfast together, taking walks outdoors, and making small accomplishments every day. For her, her new life was an opportunity to show Louis that true joy and intimacy do not depend on wealth. Their relationship continued to grow stronger, and Louis gradually realized that this life was more satisfying than all the luxuries he had once been surrounded by. However, Louis' past continued to remind him of himself. His family, not ready to accept his abandonment of his responsibilities as heir, continued to make attempts to win him back. Family counselors and attorneys tried to convince Louis to reconsider his decision, reminding him that the future of the business was at risk. Pressure from the family was mounting, and Louis was beginning to feel an internal conflict. His heart was with Bok-shil, but his sense of duty to his family and the company continued to plague him. Bok-shil, noticing that Louis was becoming tense again because of family matters, tried to support him. She understood that it was important for him to make a final decision and did not want their love to cause Louis to feel like a hostage to circumstance. Bok-shil encouraged Louis to discuss all his options, and he, seeing her support, decided to take the final step. Louis gathers his strength and meets with his family to explain his decision once and for all. He tells them that he is grateful for everything he has received from them, but now he wants to live his own life, following his own principles and dreams. He explains that his true happiness is with Bok-shil, and that his life is no longer about wealth and corporation. Louis' family, though disappointed by his decision, is forced to accept that he has chosen a new path. From this point on, the pressure comes to naught. Louis and Bok-shil begin to truly build their new life. Now they are free from the past and can focus on creating their future, where love, support, and understanding are the main values. Louis no longer feels obliged to conform to anyone else's expectations, and his life becomes much easier and more joyful. After Louis finally gave up his role as heir and chose to live with Ko Bok-shil, their world found a new calm. A life away from wealth and corporate obligations has become an opportunity for them to start anew, focusing on the important things, their love and happiness together. Louis no longer feels the pressure from his family, and now he and Bok-shil can fully dedicate themselves to creating a new, simpler, and more sincere life. The past no longer puts pressure on Louis. He is now truly free and can enjoy every moment he spends with Bok-shil. Their new life is full of small joys that seemed insignificant before. Simple walks, dinners together, taking care of each other, all these become the basis of their happiness. Louis, who is used to living in a world of luxury, now learns to enjoy each new day filled with sincerity and peace of mind. Bok-shil, who has always supported him, feels that their bond has become even stronger. Her love and support have helped Louis realize that true happiness is not about money or status. Together they have overcome many challenges and their relationship is now filled with trust and understanding. Bok-shil, who taught Louis a lot, also learned a lot from him, she realized that despite their external differences, their feelings were always real. However, the final episode is not without its difficulties. Louis and Bok-shil realize that their new life, although free from the previous problems, requires a lot from them. Finding a steady income and securing a stable future is their new goal. Louis, who has left behind all of his family's wealth, decides to find a job to support their family. He no longer wants to rely on the money and privilege he once had and is now ready for any challenge. This becomes a real challenge for Louis. He learns to lead a simple life that requires effort and perseverance. Despite the challenges, he remains confident that his choices were the right ones. Louis feels that together with Bok-shil they can overcome any difficulties, and this gives him strength. He starts looking for a job and faces a reality that is different from his previous life. He has to learn new skills and adapt to a new world where success depends not on money, but on hard work and determination. Bok-shil also actively helps Louis. She supports him in his job search and inspires him in his new endeavors. Their life together is full of caring for each other, and they begin to realize that a real family is not built on material goods, but on love and mutual support. Louis realizes that he has found what he has been looking for all his life: true intimacy with a man who loves him for who he is, not for what he has to offer. Meanwhile, Louis' family, though disappointed by his choice, gradually comes to terms with his decision. They realize that Louis' happiness is more important to him than wealth and business. Now that the pressure is wearing off, the family gives him space to live his life. Louis feels that even though he has given up on his family and their expectations, he is still a part of them, and this helps him make peace with himself. Amidst these events, Cha Jung-won remains a loyal friend to Bok-shil. He realizes that their relationship can't develop into a romantic one, and accepts her choice. Jung-won supports her at work and continues to be a strong support for her. Although his feelings for her remain unresolved, he decides that friendship is more important to him. Jung-won finds satisfaction in having helped Bok-shil and Louis and can now continue on his way. Louis and Bok-shil continue to build their future despite the hardships. They find jobs and begin to settle into their new lives. Their story is not a story of wealth and privilege, but a story of love that was able to overcome all obstacles. Each new day for them is filled with the joy of being together and walking towards their goal side by side. Louis and Bok-shil look forward with confidence that despite all the challenges, they will be able to overcome any difficulties. Their lives are now filled with the meaning they have found together, and this realization gives them the strength to move forward. The finale shows that true love can overcome all difficulties, and that happiness is not always about money or status. True joy lies in being close to a loved one who is willing to support and care for you, no matter what the circumstances. Louis and Bok-shil understand this, and their love grows stronger with each new day.